we found out what hasn't worked, like Thomas Edison said, hey, you know what? I didn't fail 10,000 times in creating the electric light bulb. I found 10,000 things that just didn't work to get me to the one thing that did work.
Yeah, sure.
So we went through that whole process, and that's where I feel like, as far as, just patting ourselves on the back and what the value that we provide, that's what we help other investors to, and prevent them from going through that, is that, if they start to get into real estate and want to take it on as an active investment, they're going to have to, a lot of times, go through that same process and figuring out who they can trust and who they can't trust, and who's going to do the work and who's not going to do the work. That can be a very, very expensive and painful lesson that we try to help people avoid with our model.
Yeah. I want to dig into your model a little bit more here, but I had one more question for you as relates to something you said a minute ago. I call it the starter syndrome. As you mentioned, you have a tendency to start things, but then, that's kind of where your passion is. And then as it comes to the balance of that, it fades a little bit. How do you maintain the interest beyond that startup? Because I'm the same way. I love to start businesses. And then when you start getting things rolling, it's like, okay, what's next? And we often learn that it requires our full attention for the length of that business opportunity, and are finding the right person to take over for you at the right time before you get bored. I mean, how do you overcome that, and what advice would you give to others that have that same starter syndrome?
Yeah, I think that to a certain extent that it's not a bad thing, and sometimes we just have to embrace the way that we're built. So I remember reading a book, kind of changed my life. I mean, I can't even remember what book it was, but he talked about, and the one thing I took away from it was that there's two types of people. There's either starters or finishers. The starters are the ones that get excited about something. They cast a vision. They, organize resources, i.e. people and money and energy all together. And then they get bored, and then they want to go off and do something else. So what I found is important, like, for example, inside of the nutrition business, because I have stayed, the course and with that for 22 years, which is, that's like a remarkable accomplishment for somebody that, like myself, that gets distracted and such. It's just looking at ways to keep, reinventing myself within that business, to keep, like, fresh, keeping new, like, creativity, new ideas. And when I feel myself start to get bored with one way that we're doing business, then I try to find the right team of people to kind of pass the torch on that part of the business, to where I can go and innovate in other areas inside of that business. So that's one thing that's really helped me. And I really, honestly, I think everything comes down in building successful companies that have sustainability is the team of people that you put around you. Not everybody should be a starter. There's got to be finishers on your team. Yeah,
certainly. Well, you've managed to not only create one multi-million-dollar business, but two, and the second being your high-return real estate company. How do you do that? I mean, many of us are lucky to get one break, and you've got two good breaks. And I know it's been a lot of hard work, but how do you transition into having a second successful business of that level?
Yeah, so I think it's, I look at the two, and you might think that they're just two totally different industries, right? You got nutrition on one side, and then and in that business model, it's very low capital intensive. And then you've got real estate, which is a totally different field, which is very capital intensive. So these are two incongruent businesses when you look at them from the surface level. But for me, like, my primary passion is creating passive income. That's what I love almost more than anything. I mean, besides my family and, that, of course, they're number one. But as far as from a business perspective and financial perspective and just creating a lifestyle, I love creating passive income. So both businesses, the way that I've approached them, are passive income businesses. So that passion for passive income has created that kind of that energy that I need to be able to like the push and really the lifting off the ground type, so to speak, to get both companies, off the ground and running. And then at the end of the day, Jim, I mean, both companies, I've put incredible people that are more talented than me in different areas around me. And so they're able to help run the company, sustain them. That way, when I'm only maybe giving one of them at certain periods of time, 10 or 20% of my total attention and bandwidth, because it can kind of fluctuates depending on what's needed between the two companies, that they're there to really keep the ball rolling, and so to speak, and keep everything moving forward and growing.
Yeah. Passive income. Now, would say I'm fairly new to that term. I wish I wasn't, because I realize how important and great passive income is. I think that the term gets thrown around, I don't want to say loosely, but yet loosely amongst people that aren't really 100% understanding of what it is. Clearly, you know what that is. Could you educate maybe our younger or less informed listeners what passive income is and why it's so important to have passive income?
Well, first off, great question. Let me just say this, passive income is, if you want an incredible lifestyle, then passive income is a non-negotiable. So for all the young guys out there and young, men and women that are trying to grow a lifestyle that they, really are designing and creating and living an extraordinary life, you really need in today's, American lifestyle, you really have to have passive income. So the way I try to explain it is, it's either you have people at work or you have money at work, or it could be a combination of the two. So let's look at the nutrition company that I'm in. We have people at work because I have enrolled other people as sales representatives. Every time that they sell a nutrition product, I get a small royalty or piece of the action. So they're gonna, I'm gonna get ongoingly for however long that they're, moving product into the marketplace, I'm going to get a percentage of all those sales. So that's passive income, and that's sustained itself for the last 20 years. If you look at, that's people at work, right? So then you look at money at work. So different ways I can look at that. If I have a, $1 million in the bank, it's in a CD with, say 3% interest is probably about right now from what I've seen, maybe plus or minus a little bit. If I got 3% on $1 million, I'm going to get $30,000 annually automatic passive income a year. Mm-hmm. Or I could buy a piece of real estate. We sell properties in the Midwest for, say, $50,000 for a single that generates $700 in rent. So now, you're going to up your returns to 10% and of your total capital invested. And then if you use leverage or debt service to, you can increase your returns by 2 or 3 times. So now if I buy a piece of property, $50,000, I contact my bank and I get a loan against that property. Now the money that I put in, I can magnify that to where now I'm getting 20, 25, 30% returns on my cash that I have in. So those are the different ways that, just examples of creating passive income. But you've got to figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do? I think it's pretty slow going if you're, if you're trying to accumulate cash and then put it in the bank and get, 3% interest. It's going to take you a while to build up any level of lifestyle passive income. So you got to start looking at businesses that you can do that are going to create passive income, or you're going to look at investment vehicles that you can do that can create, faster results and higher levels of returns.
And I think figuring out those multiple streams of passive income are why you hear these success stories such as yours. And maybe you only hear the top line of that success. Hey, I got multiple businesses, I have passive income, and I'm at home with my kids all day. people not understanding how much work went into that, but truly understanding that passive income is other sources working in your favor so that you're making a little bit. And oftentimes that's just a little bit per income opportunity, but a little bit turns out to be a lot at some point, correct?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I think it all comes down to education. I mean, you've got to educate yourself financially and you educate your mindset so that when you're able to spot opportunities to create passive income when they start to come your way. So it's all about, what are you reading? What are you listening to? How bad do you really want to learn about passive income? A lot of times it's just simply a lack of financial education that people they don't know what they don't know. So they don't understand how money works. They don't understand how businesses work that create, that kind of level of passive income that's really going to give them the lifestyle that they want.
Yeah. We've got a lot of young families, parents that listen to this show. I know several myself, and I've got a couple of young kids, a 3 and a 5-year-old here at the house. How do you instill that entrepreneurial spirit into your children, and what advice would you give to us for our kids?
I think it's, honestly, like, I think our kids learn the most just by they're modeling after you. They're, it's all about them, like, just seeing, like, how do you go about living your life? What do you do? They pick up on a lot of things. I mean, I think they're always watching, and you think that they're not watching, they really are. So my kids, I mean, honestly, like, I let them listen in on my conversations when I'm in the car. Sometimes the only problem with that is some of the, partners I have, they're foul language.
Well, they're really learning.
Right. I just have to remember, I'm like, hey guys, my kids are in the car, just FYI. So, and like half the time they like totally forget or ignore it. And so my kids are definitely learning colorful language.
Sure.
Which is so fantastic. But then, mom, of course, is, who's going to get blamed? I take the heat. but but I try to let them, listen in. They come into my office. I let them, listen in on my conference calls and, just they lose attention pretty quick, but trying to help them to just to learn. I try to take my kids sometimes to my properties, do a little like infield trips so they can start to see what it's like to be a real estate investor. I play Monopoly with my kids all the time so that and there's another game called Cash Flow for kids, and then the adult version is Cash Flow. It's by Robert Kiyosaki. It's his board game.
Okay.
So we play that a lot. And I think games are an incredible way to make it fun and make learning fun and for kids. And then, another thing I did, I got a entrepreneurial book that it talked about, it's like 50 businesses that a young kid could start. So that gave my oldest son, John, he's turning 11. He read that book, and then it was December 26th, the day after Christmas, and it's so cold here in Michigan, and he's out on the corner selling lemonade, made like $20. He was so excited because he read the book and he talked about, profits and, starting a business and everything. So I think, there's multiple ways to do that. But, if you enroll your kids into your businesses, and just try to allow them to be a part of it whenever you can, that's ultimately, I think, what we're all trying to do, right, is try to, teach our kids, instill the values in them and teach them entrepreneurialism. And at the end of the day, they may end up being better off being employees. I don't know. But at least they're going to be exposed to all the aspects of it, and they can decide if it's the right thing for them, as they get older.
Yeah, and they could have choices, and I think that's what's really important, is allowing them to have all those choices as to what they want to do. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be excited about the notion of more passive income, or passive income to even begin with, and I think that you guys are probably the experts in helping people get there a little bit. Can we talk about your business a little bit more specifically? somebody's listening to this show and they're going, okay, I want to get in. Where do I start at? Jack, is